What we feel now, you be a leader, filled with might, cause we're awakened.
You can be a winner. That's right, you can win big on the Awaken Radio Network. Check out our homepage, awakenradio.net, for the latest contests, the latest giveaways. Recently, we've awarded winners just for calling in, just for typing in the chat room, just for making a comment in our forum. All sorts of gifts, heirloom seeds, e-books, and many more prizes are on the way. Right now, you can make a huge difference with $1 by going to awakenradio.net. There on the homepage, you'll see the graphic and the information about your donation of $1 can not only help the station, not only help open you up to Thrival Energy, but it places your name in a drawing to win a full 1-hour Thrival session with Donna Devane. This is a $100 value for $1. Come on, make a difference for $1. Win prizes. Join us in our live chat room. Call in on our live shows. Add comments to our forums. You can win. Every week there's a new winner, and a lot of times there's new winners every night. Join us for live talk radio on the best online talk radio station anywhere in the world, Awaken Radio Network at awakenradio.net. Or if you can't make it to our website, listen on your mobile device. I love you. And now, back to the show.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rob Ragozzine. This is Simply Conversations, and it's all about exploring how everyday conversations have helped individuals to finally listen to their hearts. What has your heart been calling for? What has it been guiding you towards? That's what we'll talk about here. Conversations matter. And tonight we'll be talking with Rebecca Burton of ActivateCT.com. And this show will be exploring, as I have said, how everyday conversations have helped people to finally listen to their hearts. We'll look at what conversations inspired them, our interviewers, to make changes in their life. And join me as I talk with Rebecca. She's involved with several awareness groups in Connecticut. We'll discuss how she got involved, what inspires her to keep going, what she's learned along the way, and more. So come gather with us in our conversation. It may encourage you to enliven and waken up to your own potential and your own possibilities. Are you ready to bring your own voice to the conversation, your community, and the world? Join us tonight, and in the second half, we'll have the opportunity to have you call in or talk and ask questions to Rebecca. Bring your ideas, thoughts, and comments to the show. Your participation is needed. We'll be waiting. So please join us in the chat room at awakenradio.net and click on the live chat tab, or add Awaken Radio to your Skype, or dial 334-649-7204. Thanks for joining us tonight. We'll introduce Rebecca now. Briefly, in her own words, though, she says she wants to have the willingness to take risks and put herself out there. She'd like us to know what's really going on in all of the scenarios out there, as opposed to what the accepted story is, and how to be surprising and bold in our efforts to affect change. So with that in mind, we'll introduce Rebecca.
Hi, Rob. Thanks for having me on.
Hi, Rebecca. How are you tonight?
I'm good. Thank you.
Now, I had sent you a list of questions. I was wondering what struck you as the most important to talk about tonight.
Well, it's funny. I have to just start out by saying that I was having some trepidation about tonight and what to say and all of that, and it sort of occurred to me that for work, I'm a psychotherapist in private practice, And so I spend my life listening to other people and talking about themselves, and I don't do a whole lot of talking about myself. So this is definitely a stretch for me. It certainly kind of falls under that category of taking risks and pushing myself to do things that I'm not terribly comfortable about. So even just reading the questions and thinking about myself in sort of a detailed kind of way is something that I don't do a lot of. So
well, that's great. You're also the very first guest here on Simply Conversations, so that's a big stretch. You should get a little cheer of congratulations.
Well, thank you. So I know that you had sent me a list with a lot of questions. Would you like me just to kind of talk a little bit about my...
I had wanted to know if anyone had struck you as important to talk about in particular, but I'd like to focus, I guess, on perhaps looking back at your life and looking at a particular conversation that really inspired you to make changes for yourself.
Okay.
And it might even be recent.
Yeah, I mean, I am so fortunate to have amazing conversations just about every day with the people that I've connected with through my work as an activist. But I would say that, I was thinking a lot about this, about my transformation over the past couple years and what it was really that that motivated me to get involved in the way that I have. 2 years ago, before the Occupy movement started, I had no experience as an activist. I mean, I was so sort of not aware that, and I'm embarrassed to say this almost, but, I didn't even realize or think about going to the anti-war protests back in 2003 or whenever that was. I just wasn't thinking along those lines. And then I have kids who are, they're young adults now, but the conversations that I started having with my kids about what kind of life that they were looking ahead to started to make me think that the direction that we're going was just not a direction that I wanted them to have to confront. So I obviously opened myself up to more information, and the more information I found, the more compelled I felt, the more excited I felt, but also just the more compelled and in some ways the more horrified I felt about what was happening around me. Once I opened that door, there was just no going back. And then when the Occupy movement started, and I had started to see some of the media about that, it just was like a light bulb going off that this is my time to finally do something.
Now, how has your involvement really helped you to encourage or motivate or inspire others to join you? Or if not join you, just to be motivated by you?
Well, I don't shut up about it. So people are sort of inspired, despite themselves, I think, sometimes. But I think I try just to be real and to talk about to people what's important to me and about why. And the other thing I do try to do is to listen to other people's concerns as well, So I think I can talk about topics, but just with this sort of understanding that we're all connected and that we're all in this together. And I hope that can be inspiring to people. And then also I think, it's funny, I don't look at it like this, but I've heard other people say that that they look at me as sort of the middle-class mom type, and yet, I'm out on the streets holding a sign and nose-to-nose with cops sometimes, and that seems to inspire people to sometimes take their own risks.
And you briefly mentioned your boys. How has your relationship changed as you've become more involved with these groups?
Well, I think it's been mostly positive, I will say. We've always been very close. I've been a single mom for a long time. I think that it has helped me really understand where they're coming from as far as their future, and that it is uncertain for so many of our young people. And as a mom, you kind of just want to make your kids feel better and say it'll be okay, just do well in school, go to college, you'll get a job. But I think that doing the work that I've done has really, I can't say those platitudes to them, which I hope makes them feel more understood. Yeah.
Now, I got introduced briefly to you by going to one of the GMO marches, I guess, in May.
Right.
And I was recently watching this talk on the Lang and O'Leary exchange between Kevin O'Leary and Rachel Parent. Have you seen this? She's I think a 13-year-old girl who has started to talk all about GMOs and has really risen up and become very popular.
Yeah, I've heard it, and I think I saw it go by on my news feed on Facebook, but I have not actually watched the video yet.
Okay, it's really, she's really sort of almost overridden by these newscasters who are trying to hammer home the point, which really doesn't seem valid at all, and she's really kind of overridden by Kevin O'Leary, who's just saying, well, this is helping us to raise more foods, it's all about nutrition, and it's all about helping others, and her point is she just wants to see labeling, really.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, I've been reading the book, as you were reading, called Beautiful Trouble.
Yes.
And one of the quotes in there is this one, which really I liked, is the author, Andrew Boyd, says, pissing people off won't do your cause any favors, so don't piss people off. Disarm them with charm, and maybe your audience will let their guard down long enough to hear what you have to say. I guess both on personal and political levels. What do you have to say to that?
Oh, I think that's absolutely true. And that is the direction that I try to go a lot of the time. I do think that there's some value in righteous anger, and I've certainly participated in actions where I've been able to express that. But anger, I think, scares people. They don't understand it. They shut down. And in the early days of the Occupy movement, we were acting out our anger in all sorts of ways, like going into Walmart and doing a mic check, and I've never seen a more confused audience in my life. The shoppers just sort of staring at us. For one thing, we were speaking English, and most of them were probably not native English speakers. But it felt good because we were finding our voice. A lot of us, I think, had, for me anyway, for my entire life, I have not really been allowed to be angry, or I felt, sort of socialized to not be angry. So I think that for me, I'll just speak for myself, that I had to go through that phase, I think. But I would completely agree with the quote that, I don't even know if charming is quite the right word, but just being real, and my part of me being real is being, a relatively sort of nice person, and I think that goes a long way.
So do you feel like you've been welcomed and fit in with these groups?
I feel like I fit in great with the groups. What really surprised me as a new activist was the antipathy that was coming my way from people who weren't in the movement. And I know that must sound so naive to people who've been activists for years and years. I think I went into it with the sort of my typical middle class, white privilege, female sort of thing where, of course they're going to understand me, and if they don't, they're going to ask nicely for me to explain, and I was just met with what everyone is met with, which was, derision and people not understanding and not really being kind about that. So that was certainly something that I've had to do, is just learn how to both thicken my skin and also realize that it's really part of the process.
So do you think you've had to push yourself to have the capacity to move forward?
I have had to push myself almost every day since October 15th, 2011. Yeah. I mean, I think it would be the easiest thing in the world for me just to say, forget it. It's too much work. It's too much of a risk. It's it's too stressful, but I can't. I really do feel compelled or called just to keep doing what I'm doing. But fortunately, the benefits outweigh the risk in a huge way, and part of that is that the breaks that I've taken, people kind of laugh at me because I announce these breaks. That's it. I'm done. I'm off of Facebook and I'm not going to meetings. And then I always come back quicker than I think I'm going to, because I just feel like to not do anything right now is so much more stressful than doing something.
Does it feel like a heart calling?
It does. I was talking to somebody recently about that just about the concept of having a calling, and that is not something that I'd ever felt that I had, or even that I believed in necessarily. And I don't know exactly what that means to me as an atheist. I, don't necessarily believe it comes from a higher power, but it's kind of a calling just on the part of humanity, just to do something, not just to sit. My Twitter account, the tagline on it is not just sitting here watching the whole thing fall apart. And that's I won't do that.
So you're called to do something. You're not necessarily sure what that is, but you're helping things happen.
And it depends on, what I really like about the way that I work, and I think it's because I got involved in activism initially through the Occupy movement, is that it's not, the approach is so flexible, right? So if it's Monsanto, 1 month, and the Trans-Pacific Partnership another month, or if we need to bring an educational event, or if we need to do an action, or whatever, I don't have to know necessarily, this is what I do, and this is how I do it. I sort of do what's called for, to the best of my ability.
But it speaks to you.
Yeah, it definitely speaks to me.
And that's I think what keeps you going, is that you're truly listening to whatever is important to you at your core.
Right.
And to me, that's listening to your heart. However you'd like to label it, but you're still listening.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, talking about it, I've never really thought about it like this until just now, but it's really kind of listening to humanity in a way, and what are we called to do by humanity, by all the people who came before us, and by all the people who will come after us. And it's pretty powerful.
It is. Now, when you get up in the morning and go off and then come back after an event, do you feel satisfied? Is there something that feels left undone, or is there a time when you can sit back and say, I feel like I've made a change today?
Well, it depends on the event and how it goes. I've been to some events that sort of felt kind of flat, but the march that you were at is a great example of just an incredible, I was thinking about it when I was near Bushnell Park the other day, just an incredible example of it all coming together. And, we planned that march in 2 or 3 days, maybe 5 days. It was raining. We had some opposition from another group that got really ugly. Two of us had met, Deborah Cohen and I, but Shannon Watson was a brand new factor. And we meshed incredibly, and we worked so well together, and we had just an incredibly successful march. And I can remember being at the front of that march, turning around and watching as people were coming around the corner at the beginning of the march, and they just kept coming and coming and coming. And I just thought, wow, we made this happen. And we still have connections from that day, and that's where we started Activate CT, was after that march. And so it's events like that that just really, you can say, okay, all of this hard work, every once in a while you need to see it in action, and you need to see it working, and it's just incredibly powerful.
And it was at the end of May, but it felt like almost November with the rain and the wind. And
yes, right. So we were, we got there early. Obviously, we were standing at the band shell trying to stay dry. And we turned around and we could just see across Bushnell Park people coming in 2s and 3s and 5s, and little kids and dogs, and everybody had their signs and their ponchos on. And it was just this amazing expression of everyone about what was important to them, but also, and I don't know if it sounds selfish to say, but it was also such a statement of trust in us. Like, we're going to come to this thing, even though it's raining, even though it's so cold, and we're going to trust you to make it worthwhile. And it was just amazing.
It was an amazing day, and I think the fact that so many people showed up really was a sign of your strength as a group and you just had formed, really.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We weren't even official at that point. We were just three women, working together.
So ultimately, what changes would you like to see happen after all this work that you've been already doing?
Well, my fondest desire that I talk about a lot is just that I wish people would wake up. And I know that, we all say that, but it feels to me in some ways like time is getting short. And I hope that through what we've created, that we can motivate people and educate them and inspire them to do whatever's important to them. They don't have to do what's important to us, but just be doing something. Because I think that once you start to do something, you feel that agency, that sense of power, personal power, that you don't even know that you have sometimes. And you can take that, and it doesn't matter if it's Activate CT or if it's Greenpeace or if it's whatever, it's something. And that can lead to something else, and then maybe at the end of it, we'll have a real change.
Really, it's about doing something for your community, and that's what I'd like to get across to the audience. It's about helping your own community to help heal, grow, shift, whatever. And by doing that, you're really helping yourself to heal and shift and change.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, in some ways it's almost felt like a selfish thing because I've gotten so much out of it myself, just as far as being almost a completely different person than I was 2 years ago, just that sense of my own power and strength, the connections that I've made. I mean, it's something that I would love for people to know, that once you get out there and you start doing something, the dividends can be many, many times more than what you can even imagine.
Do your friends and family recognize you from back then?
Well, I have to say that some old friendships have fallen away. Before I called in tonight, I was looking back through some old Facebook posts from right before Occupy, and I was struck by how many different people were responding to what I had posted and that sort of thing, that are just not my friends anymore. And not that I've lost, I don't think, any really close friendships, but the people who I am close to, my kids, some very close friends, I think have just been amazing in their support. And then the new friendships that I've made are really life-changing, solid friendships.
Well, that's great news.
Yes.
So you've really, I guess the word would be, connected with yourself, and by doing that, you really solidified your other relationships.
Yeah, I think it's probably because I'm finally, I'm almost 45 years old now, and I'm finally in the place where I think I know myself better than I ever have. And part of it maybe was that there was all of this energy around, changing the world that I wasn't tapping into before. And so I feel pretty integrated these days, and I think that probably comes across to people.
It's a willingness to look within yourself and make those changes, perhaps.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The self-awareness, I think, is huge.
Now, do you still think that there's people that simply don't know what you're doing or don't have a value for it because they don't understand it?
Oh, I think that there's a tremendous amount of people who feel that way. As far as close friends or family, for me, I don't know. I mean, I'm not terribly close to my family of origin. My mom seems to be pretty supportive of it. But I would say that it's sort of either you get it or you don't, and I've got plenty of people in my life who say, okay, that's great that you're doing that. I don't really understand why. And those are the people that I would love just to be able to reach. And I haven't found a way to really be able to reach people who are completely sort of turned off by what's important to me, which is something that I'm working on. And I think that sort of goes back to that whole charm issue that you were talking about. It's adjusting your approach depending on the person that you're trying to talk to.
Well, not everything works for everyone. They have to understand why you're doing it, and they might not understand, especially with the GMO. After I saw the Kevin O'Leary show, seems to me that they're trying to just look at it from or spread the word that it's all about nutrition and it's helping people to eat more food.
Right. Yes, and they had come out with a new website where some of the big biotech giants just in the past couple of days have put up this website about it's a pro-GMO, why it's good for you website. But I'm finding that more and more people, I really think that it's a great entry into talking to people just about all sorts of things like the power of corporations and, whatnot when it comes to GMOs, because I feel like that's the subject that really has a wide audience right now.
I think also it's an opportunity to talk about local farming and CSAs and all of that, because not only is it you're helping your community, but I think the food tastes a whole lot better.
Yes, I joined a CSA for the first time, finally, after 20 years this year, and I will tell you that is absolutely true. I highly recommend it.
So it's really an opportunity to not only support your local farms, it's an opportunity to learn new ways to cook, new ways to explore the culinary world, just because you're getting a basket, almost like watching Chopped or something, of stuff. Now you have to cook it all.
Yes, right. There's been a little bit of urgency around that. Oh boy, we got to use that bagel quickly. But yeah, I am doing so much more cooking over the past couple of weeks. I just think that that's something that people do at least 3 times a day. So it's a great entry into, look, if you make these different changes, it's good. It's good globally, and it's also, like you said, good for the community, good for your family, and good for you, your own health.
I just want to mention we have about 3 minutes till break. And when we get back, we'll have the opportunity to ask questions and perhaps contribute some of your own ideas to the show. And you can call in at 334-649-7204 or add Awakened Radio to Skype. And when we do get back in about 3 minutes, I'll mention those numbers again, but just giving you the opportunity to have those numbers ready. Now, as we're talking about this, I'm just wondering if, on the flip side of things, and this might be a deeper question than we can really talk about in 2 minutes, but do you think that too much is almost expected of you when you're involved with these groups?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You're probably right that it's more than a 2-minute question. I have definitely felt like that before, and I honestly don't know if that's coming from other people or if it's coming from myself or a little bit of both. But I tend to gravitate toward being a leader, and I think there's a lot that's expected of leaders, and especially, I put myself in the situations, right, where I'm helping to organize these huge events, and I expect myself to pull it off, but I do think that there's some expectations that are coming from other people as well.
It's almost like, on one hand, they don't believe you, or they're detracting from what you're saying, and then on the other hand, they're saying you can't tell us enough because we already have our beliefs.
Right. Yeah, it can be a paradox.
And I guess with that in mind, we'll leave you with a quote before the break from Pema Chodron, and she says, "We think that the point is to pass the test or overcome the problem, but the truth is that things don't really get solved. They come together and they fall apart. And they come together again and fall apart again. It's just like that. The healing comes from letting there be room for all of this to happen. Room for grief, for relief, for misery, for joy." And with that, we'll take our break and come back and ask your questions or participate in the conversation. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Donna Devane, the Barefoot Guru, station owner here of the Awakened Radio Network, and I would like to invite you to be an active part of our Awakened Radio Network family. We have a live chat room on our station website at awakenedradio.net. We also have forums where you can interact and communicate with our host and with other listeners. We also have opportunities for you to find out who's on, what they're talking about, who are they. Check out our schedule, as well as our Meet the Host page, where you'll get all the information of who's talking on our airwaves and what their message is that they're bringing to you. And if you have a message, something that just burns within you that you must share with the world, then I invite you to add Awakened Radio to your Skype and send me a message so that we can make arrangements to talk about getting you and your message on our airwaves. Awakened Radio is doing more than talking about the problems and talking about how we need to change. We actually are experiencing ourselves as the ones creating the change. Join us. Take part in the Awakened Radio Network family. Visit us today, www.awakenedradio.net. And remember, our website is mobile. You can listen to us through TuneIn. Most mobile devices have a music app. Look for Awakened Radio. If you don't find our station there, then send me an email, awakenedradio@gmail.com, and I will make sure to get them to add us so that you can listen on the go. Be sure and check out our fan page at Facebook. We're Awakened Radio. Follow at Awakened Radio on Twitter and at Real Donna Devane on Twitter. Be part of what we're doing. Answer the invitation. Join us, because we are doing more than talking about change. We are knowing ourselves to be the energy of change. I love you. And now, back to the show.
And we're back, and during this second half hour, we're opening up the communication lines so you can add Awakened Radio to your Skype or call 334-649-7204 and come on the air and ask Rebecca a question of your own or make your own comments. And thanks for joining us, and we're back with Rebecca. And before we run out of time completely, I'd like you to talk about any upcoming events that are important for people to know about, especially, I guess, the one that's happening in October, the March Against whatever it's called.
Okay, yes, definitely. In August, we are not quite sure of the date yet, but we're going to be holding an educational event. Activate CT is for the Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement, which is what they call NAFTA on steroids. It's extremely troublesome, and all the GMO labeling in the world is not going to matter if it goes through as it is planned. So lots of complicated reasons for that, but if people are interested in that, they can check out our Facebook page it's Activate CT Now on Facebook. September 17th is the second anniversary of Occupy, and Occupy Wall Street is going to be making the TPP their focus. It's actually a 3-day event beginning on the 15th, so the 15th, 16th, and then culminating on the 17th. And then, yes, they're calling it World Food Day on October 12th, and it is sort of a repeat of the march that happened in May. We are hoping to make it bigger and better, and we're certainly hoping for better weather. And we've got some great stuff in the works for that, as far as not just a march, but hopefully a rally as well, with some speakers and music and time to get to know each other. So that is coming up on October 12th. You can get more information. There is an event page. If you go to Activate CT Now on Facebook, we post it on a pretty regular basis.
Okay. Someone in the chat room has asked a question, and they want to know where you find all your energy.
Coffee? Well, to tell the truth, that's something that I need to work on, which is balance. I stay up too late. I push myself too hard. It's hard when you're doing something that just feels so energizing to remember that you do have to take a break. I am fortunate beyond belief to work for myself. I have a private practice, and so there's a lot of flexibility in my time. And I don't know. I just think when you do something like this, it just provides its own energy.
Now, do you make time for yourself to step out of that craziness, to step out of the busyness?
Not as much as I should, that's for sure. And, you know, since a lot of my friends are in the same sort of boat that I am, we do a lot of work together when we're together. So one of my intentions is to find ways to shut it off. I mean, I'm pretty tied into my electronics, whether it's my laptop or my phone, Twitter, Facebook, you know. And I really need to be able to shut that off. I'm thinking about going back to yoga. I started exercising again. And then just having some fun. I'm actually heading to Montreal for a week with the kids. So stuff like that to step out of the everyday.
That's great. I think the next thing that comes to mind really is to look at, are there any sacrifices that you're making in order to make room in your life for speaking up, speaking no?
Yeah, I would say so. And I had a sort of a difficult conversation with my 15-year-old recently, or I'm sorry, it might have been my middle son now that I'm thinking about it. Just that they sometimes feel like I'm absent, you know, especially if I'm in the middle of planning a big action. It really is sort of, I'm all in, you know, for the couple weeks beforehand. So, yeah, I mean, I think I have to be careful to not get too immersed. Otherwise, I do end up sacrificing quality time with others, or even just, you know, with myself. The other thing, actually, Rob, I should say, is that one of the things that I'm sacrificing, but doing it pretty willingly, is privacy and safety in some ways, just because, you know, we all sort of laugh about we're probably on some NSA list. Just saying that, probably, you know, some ears are perking up. But, you know, it's not necessarily a safe and comfortable place to be all the time. But that is a totally willing sacrifice on my part, because I think that it's important to speak up, even if it doesn't always feel like a safe thing to do.
Well, what does that make you feel like? How do you feel about that, the sacrifices? Obviously, you're willing to push through it, but that could still linger.
Yeah, I mean, it does linger. I think humor really helps. We, you know, have our memes that we pass around about the NSA, or every once in a while I'll write them a love letter on Facebook or something. So humor's good. When it's not funny is when, you know, if my kids are being impacted, obviously. So that's when I definitely pay attention to that. But I feel like right now is the time for sacrifice. Right now is not the time for me to be comfortable. And I've really come to terms with that and been okay with you know, taking those risks. And I'm not risk averse. I mean, one of the questions that I'd answered on your questionnaire was that I'd gone to 11 different elementary schools, you know, thanks to my parents, who were pretty nomadic when I was little. And so I'm used to putting myself out there, to walking into rooms where I don't know people, and sacrificing that sense of safety. Now,
most of the activity that you're involved with is largely adults, but do you look to the younger generation, the teens and 20-somethings, to get involved?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's just completely inspiring to see these kids. You know, with the Occupy movement, of course, we had a lot of negativity around that, around the hippies and the, you know, get a job kind of stuff. But these kids that I've met, and by kids I'm saying late teens to mid-20s or so, are so incredibly intelligent and motivated. And, I mean, how many kids do you know who are going to sit down and read Sacred Economics by Charles Eisenstein and then want to talk about it, you know? They're just amazing kids. And so it really, really gives me hope for this generation. And it also, as being in the generation that I'm in, it just gives me so much motivation to help them get what they need and to respect them and to really work side by side.
So what would you say to them, to those people, especially the younger generations, about how to get involved? They don't have the resources or the vehicles or the money to do the traveling, or just to have the time to be able to have the freedom to get involved.
Well, I would say for them to reach out, whether it's a local Occupy group or somebody that they know who's doing the work, to reach out and find out how they might be able to participate. I think that they might be surprised that, for one thing, nobody ever has any money when they're doing this stuff, so that's not really required. But, you know, if we're going to go to a march in New York City, there are rides. You know, people really try to support each other. And if we have young people who are interested in doing what we're doing, we would really reach out to them and try to help them figure out what they can contribute and how to make it simple for them. So I would say to them, reach out. Don't just sit behind your computer and think that you can't do anything, because you really can. And even at school, you know, talk to your friends, raise important issues, see what you can change at school. You know, that you're not powerless just because you're a kid.
And that brings up an important point about the schools. At least for me, I think about the food in the schools and how it's really not being geared towards healthy. It's being geared towards how can we serve the most kids.
Right. It's a very similar situation to the prisons, unfortunately, when it comes to food. Yeah. And one thing that my son had done in middle school was to try to get people agitated around that by having them boycott their school lunches. And he ran into not a whole lot of excitement about that idea. But, I mean, that's something that could work if you stick with it, or letter writing, or there's a great short film that a kid made, actually. He was in 4th grade, I think, at the time, where he snuck in a video camera, you know, and videotaped his lunch every day for months, and then did a little documentary on it. And, you know, it's even a 4th grader, you know, could do something about it.
That's a great point. We have someone in the chat room that says the most radical thing you can do is introduce people to each other. So I'm wondering how you're doing that, how you go about that, especially at some of these groups where people they feel drained just getting there. It's a challenge for them to show up.
Yeah, well, I think showing up is definitely that's what has to happen. And then once people are there, they're usually pretty good about figuring out how to connect. That is something that I look at as a strength, is for myself, is to facilitate relationships, you know. So getting people around other people is really important. And that's where, like, our marches that we organize are great. But the rallies are also important, or time just to learn together or whatever, you know, just to get people in the same space, and then they figure it out. You know, human beings want to connect. It's just a matter of helping them find where they can be.
Now, we had another question from chat, and I guess we talked about this briefly before, but it says, does she ever feel like she's out there, that she's always on alert, so out there that she's always on alert?
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's funny. It's almost like there are two different tracks in my brain, right? One track is I'm a business owner, I'm a mom, I, you know, live in a little suburb, and I'm, you know, not on anybody's radar, so who cares? I can do what I want. And then there's this other track that's running at the same time that says, you know, the FBI has knocked on people's doors before, you know. So it's kind of this parallel track that happens, and I would say that it sort of switches back and forth depending on how involved I am in any given tactic, and, you know, the legality of the tactic and whatnot. So yeah, I mean, I would say there are definitely times I've been on alert. Once was when we were scoping out the Monsanto building in it's actually DeKalb in Mystic, after pretty successful protest down there. We just decided to check out the actual building. So we're running around on the grass and just being, general idiots, basically. And there was a guy on a bike taking pictures of us, So we went up and asked him what he was doing, and we took a picture of him, and he said he was going to hold on to he took pictures of our license plates, and, and said he was going to be holding on to the info. And we said, well, why? And he said, in case we needed it. So it kind of makes me feel like they're probably on a Monsanto list somewhere, but that's okay. And maybe I'm naive. It just doesn't keep me up at night.
Another question from chat is, have you ever been arrested?
I have not, but I talk about that a lot because I have a feeling I probably will be sooner or later. It's just a matter of it being for the right reasons at the right time. There were several times when I've been in New York where I've been threatened with arrest, and it never happened yet. But that's something else I don't really fear because I'm pretty prepared for it.
Now, is there a moment that you knew that whatever you're doing is and was making a difference?
Yeah, I think there have been a lot of moments, whether it's in individual conversations with people and just getting excited about empowering ourselves and each other, or whether it's when I'm, October 15th, 2011 was an amazing day for me. I was in the middle of Times Square with 30,000 other people, and all of us were lifting our voices together, and we were standing under where the ticker is. I don't know if it's the NBC building or something, and it said something about Occupy Wall Street, protest, and, I was right there. And it's those moments, whether they're little or huge, where you say, okay, yeah, this is happening. This is a big deal.
How would you recommend someone that hasn't done any kind of protest work or any kind of speaking up get started?
Well, I think that if they can find a local group based on their interest, and even just reach out to one person, to say, okay, do you know what's going on, or is there a way I can get involved? If you hear that there's a rally or a march going on, just go and you can stand on the outskirts and just observe. You don't have to jump in and do anything. I was talking to a friend of mine who's very progressive-minded and has never been to anything like that because she has a young daughter. And, I think there's the idea out there that, if you go, then you're putting yourself in harm's way, you could be arrested, and most of the time, unless you're at a huge rally or whatever, you can sort of stand on the outskirts and just kind of observe, pay attention, talk to one person and say, what's going on here, and ease into it, but do it.
I think I don't have a word for it, I guess we'll just call it awesomeness of the May March was that it was families involved, and tons of them, pushing baby carriages and whatnot. And it was raining.
Yeah.
And cold again.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just individuals, or it was groups of people, couples, families, all out there together.
Right, and two of us in Active ACT actually have kids of our own, and so we, our kids are there. Shannon's kids are younger than mine, and I think that helps too, just to sort of, normalize it for people that it's not, it's not that I have anything against Black Bloc or masked folks or anonymous or whatever, but it's not just about that. It's about families out there really fighting for what's important to them just by showing up.
Yes, there was a few anonymous people there, but mostly it was families.
Yeah, it was mostly families. I think we counted 12 baby carriages or something, which is crazy. And 6 dogs or something,
Now, if someone wants to get involved but their family won't listen to them and they need their help, what should they do? How do they move on?
Well, I guess it depends on what kind of help they're needing. I think there are a lot of resources out there just from people who are already involved. But it's hard to ask for help, I think, And one of the things that I'm completely aware of is that I'm fairly privileged in that way, that if I have a vehicle, so I can get to Hartford for meetings and whatnot. So it's hard to say. I've got a close friend whose family is completely unsupportive, young guy in his 20s, and he just does it anyway because it's so important to him. And so that's part of the risk, right, is that when you get involved with something like this, that relationships can change. And that's scary for people, and not everybody can do that. But relationships can also change for the better, and you can make new friends and really almost have a new family as well.
Lucy in the chat room mentions there were 10 dogs and 10 carriages at the rally. So
okay, yes, she was our person who was keeping track of that, so she knows. She's the expert on that.
Well, we talked about this before, but do you get any kind of encouragement from your friends or family?
Well, I get sort of a tolerating sort of good for you from, a lot of my friends who aren't involved in activism. My family lives in Arizona, and they're ideologically speaking completely opposite from me. And so there's an agree to disagree sort of thing goes on, and I don't really talk to them about what I'm doing. So if I was doing this and didn't have friends in the movement, it would be a very lonely thing. But it doesn't feel lonely at all to me.
Now, do you have any particular people that you look up to that perhaps are your heroes, or at least someone that motivates you to move on?
I would say I was thinking a lot about that, and it's not any one particular person, but I would say that people are so motivating and inspiring for so many different reasons. It could be someone who's dealing with a loved one who's sick, but still carrying on and doing, whatever they can. It could be Occupy Wall Street people who are, putting themselves out there on the streets, to be arrested and sleeping out at night. It's just, I find people in this movement generally inspiring. And then the ones who are leading or writing about it, there's Chris Hedges and Cornel West, and, there's the big names, of course, but I find myself just as inspired by the everyday people.
That's good to hear, because we're really looking at, I guess, how the individual can make the changes here. It's not necessarily the big people, but it's the everyday person that can help to make the changes.
Right. I think that was such a huge shift in thinking for me, because, a few years ago, I would have said, well, I wish Obama could do this, or I wish my senator would do that. And once you start to get involved yourself, then it just becomes, okay, how can I make this happen? Or how can my friends and I come together to make something happen? And there's such empowerment around that, rather than waiting for, the big name to do something different.
And we have another question in chat, and Ingrid asks, why is change, I guess, around GMOs in this country taking so long?
Oh, well, my thought on that is because Monsanto is running the show. Monsanto and corporations like them. If you haven't done any research on the American Legislative Exchange Council, I highly recommend it, ALEC. And I think if you Google ALEC Watch, it will come up with the website. Lots of good information out there about how corporations are basically writing state laws, for one. But the power that the corporation has in American government is almost absolute at this point. So if it's not good for a corporation, you can be pretty sure that it's not going to happen.
Well, we're almost out of time, so I'd like you to share your links again and upcoming activities, especially for the people in Connecticut. Okay,
absolutely. So we are on Facebook. Working on a website, but we don't have one yet. So on Facebook, we are Activate CT Now. If you're interested in the Trans-Pacific Partnership campaign that's going on right now, it's Activate CT1 ONE Focus on Facebook. On Twitter, you can find us at Activate_CT. Or if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, it's Rebecca_Justice. And there is also, I haven't talked much about Occupy Hartford, but we are definitely alive and well and meeting every other week at 10:30, first and third Saturday, at 10:30 a.m. at the Hartford Public Library. And you can go to occupyhartfordct.com. The website is not very active right now. You'd have better luck probably finding us on Facebook at Occupy Hartford on Facebook. If you'd like to contact me directly, you can. My email is rosewood924@gmail.com.
Now, I think you briefly mentioned it, but how do people find out about the meeting in Hartford Public Library?
They can go to our Facebook page at Occupy Hartford on Facebook. It is the first and third Saturdays at 10:30 a.m. If you have any questions about that, you can email me directly.
Is there anything else that people should know?
I would just stay tuned for stuff that we've got coming up. We're very hard at work on the TPP stuff right now. We think that is just a huge area where almost nothing else is going to matter if that gets ratified or whatever. So please do some research on that. Join us on the Facebook page. And we could really use some help. We've been at this now for a long time, and, there's not very many of us. So I'd like to put out there that, please contact us to get involved, because we could really use your energy and your ideas.
Or at least help people that are local to you.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We absolutely want to build that network. And we can be pretty fun to work with, too. So definitely drop us a line.
Well, thanks for joining us tonight, Rebecca. We'll have to have you on again before the October March, but that's our show for tonight. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you. Now, we're done with the show tonight, but if you enjoyed this show, or you've enjoyed any of our other shows and you're so inclined, we'd appreciate that you come to our awakenedradio.net page and grant us a donation. They're always greatly appreciated. We're here for no cost to you, so please find it in your heart to click the donate button at the top of all the screens here on Awakened Radio. You can also have the opportunity to be a sponsor of Awakened Radio by providing us with a 30-second audio, and that will be played 3 times during a particular show of your choice, at the beginning, at the halfway point, and at the end. And then, of course, all of our shows are archived, so you'll have the opportunity for your message to be heard in iTunes and Talk Show through the archive. And we also have Thrive Magazine for people making changes and writing articles, art, and poetry about whatever matters to you. And I believe there's an August 10th deadline for the August issue, which will be a double issue combining this past month, July and August. So it should be a good and active magazine. So please contribute your articles, artwork, and poetry to that, and look forward to sometime around August 20th to have Thrive Magazine. And you can find my past shows, on my intuitionbyrob.net website, and going to the media tab, and you can come to my forum page and read about the past shows, or look at my show page. Your Unfolding Senses is my other show, and come to the Awakened Radio store, and you can click on my Facebook and Twitter links. They're all there, especially for Your Unfolding Senses, which I talk all about opening to your intuition. And of course, you can come to the Awakened Radio store and buy dream catchers, gemstones, healing kits, and more. You can get readings from Ingrid Germano, Donna Devane, Susan Kern, and myself, I believe. And again, thank you for joining us here tonight. Please stay tuned for next week, Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern. We'll have another show introducing another person making important changes in their lives and helping their communities to grow and change.
And
if you're so in,
won't catch us sleeping through the fight in life. We're all eyes open, showing our inside and light so bright. We are awakened, coming.